It was another typical late-night run with Jamie. We'd done this 100 times before. Our usual route through the quiet suburban streets, the ones lit by the soft amber glow of street lamps. The kind of neighborhood that, at this hour, felt like it belonged to no one but us. The rhythm of our footsteps, the steady breathing, the faint rustle of leaves in the distance. It was all so familiar. There was comfort in the routine, and tonight felt like any other. But tonight, something felt different. We were halfway through the run when Jamie, grinning with that mischievous look she gets when she has an idea, suggested a change. "Hey, what if we go through the woods tonight?" she asked, pointing off to the side of the main road where the trees loomed, dark and silent in the night. We'd always stuck to the paved streets, but the woods? That was unfamiliar territory. We'd never run through them at night, not once. I hesitated, but Jamie was already heading toward the wooded area, her shoes crunching on the gravel path that led off the road. She didn't wait for me to respond. She was already off, challenging me to follow. And, well, I wasn't about to back down. Besides, it was just a shortcut through the woods, right? "All right," I called out after her. "But if we get lost, it's your fault." She laughed, the sound carried off by the wind, and I followed. The air felt different once we entered the woods. It was cooler, the canopy of trees above blocking out some of the streetlight, plunging us into a soft half-darkness. The familiar hum of the neighborhood, the distant sound of traffic and neighbors chatting, faded into silence. The only sound now was our breathing and the soft rhythm of our feet hitting the dirt. But something felt off. We'd only been running for a few minutes when I started to hear it, a faint sound. At first, I thought it was just the wind rustling the branches, but as we moved deeper into the woods, the noise grew clearer. It was almost like footsteps, a soft, steady rhythm, the kind that mimics our own, but just a little too deliberate, a little too close. I glanced at Jamie, who was a few feet ahead of me. She hadn't noticed. "Did you hear that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She slowed down, her head swiveling in the direction of the noise. "Probably just an animal," she said, but her voice sounded a little less confident now. I wasn't so sure. The woods were quiet, unnervingly so. We were getting farther from the neighborhood, the streetlights almost completely out of sight, and the footsteps, they were still there, just behind us, like someone was following our pace. Jamie picked up the pace, her footfalls quickening, and I did the same. The sound followed. Whatever it was keeping up with us. I wasn't about to let fear show, so I laughed nervously. "Let's just get out of here." But before we could pick up speed, something caught my eye. A figure, standing still between two trees just off the path. It wasn't far away, but it was in the shadows, barely visible. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, or maybe a log, but then I saw the movement. A figure stepping forward, dressed all in black, a hoodie pulled low over their face. My heart skipped a beat. I stopped dead in my tracks. "Jamie," I whispered urgently. "Look." She turned around just as the figure moved slightly. I could feel the tension between us as her eyes met mine. We both froze, the air thick with something unspoken. Who is that?" Jamie asked, her voice quiet, barely audible. "I don't know," I replied, my voice tight. "But we need to go." We began to back away slowly, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, still and silent. But then, just as I thought we might be able to slip away unnoticed, the figure took a step forward into the path. It was a deliberate movement, blocking the way. My blood ran cold. "Okay, time to go," I hissed, turning and running before I could think twice. Jamie was right behind me, her breath coming in short bursts. We didn't speak. There was no time. The figure hadn't followed, but the sense of danger pressed down on us like a weight. Then, the sound of footsteps. Not ours. Those weren't ours. They were heavier, faster. They were chasing us. I didn't dare look back. We pushed ourselves harder, the path ahead blurry in the dim light. Every shadow felt like it was hiding something. Every rustle in the underbrush seemed to be getting closer. My legs burned. My breath was ragged, but I couldn't stop. Not with whatever that thing was behind us. Finally, we saw the break in the woods, the path that would lead us back to the main road. We ran harder, faster, until we finally burst into the light of the street lamps. The noise stopped. The air felt less oppressive. We'd made it. We didn't stop until we were back in the middle of the neighborhood, where the houses were all lit up and people were asleep, completely unaware of what we had just run from. But even then, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still out there, watching us, waiting. Jamie and I didn't speak much after that. We didn't have to. We both knew. Sometimes it's better to stick to the familiar, because the unknown can be a lot more terrifying than we ever expect. This happened a few years ago, but it still gives me an unsettling feeling. It's the kind of thing that creeps into your thoughts on quiet nights, when the house is still and the wind moves just enough to remind you of things you'd rather forget. My family had just moved into our dream home. It was early spring, one of those rare windows of time where the days were long but not yet too warm, and the scent of blooming cherry blossoms lingered in the air. Birds chirped from white-trimmed rooftops. Lawns were freshly mowed. The street was lined with pastel-colored houses and friendly neighbors who waved from their porches. The house itself was beautiful. A 2-story colonial with new siding, polished hardwood floors, and large windows that let in the golden afternoon light. It had a wraparound porch, a quiet backyard, and even a white picket fence, like something out of a brochure. And the price? Almost too good to be true. My wife, Lisa, thought we'd just gotten lucky. The previous owner had passed away, and the property had stayed empty for a while. That explained the deal, according to the real estate agent. But from the beginning, something about the house felt off. It wasn't dramatic, just little things that didn't add up. When we first moved in, I noticed how the air felt heavier downstairs. Not damp, just dense, like there was more to breathe than there should have been. And the silence in certain parts of the house wasn't peaceful. It was loud, pressurized, like a vacuum. We brushed it off. Change is uncomfortable, especially when you've just uprooted your life. And Lisa loved the place. So did our daughter, Ellie, who had just turned 6. For the first couple weeks, everything was fine. Then came the noises. It started with tapping, soft, almost rhythmic, like knuckles on drywall. I'd be up late watching TV or reading emails, and I'd hear it behind the living room walls. Tap, 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 pause, tap, tap. At first I thought it was pipes or maybe raccoons in the attic, but it wasn't coming from above. It was always at head level, always from the same spot behind the walls. Lisa heard it too, mostly at night. Once she woke me up at 2 a.m., pale and trembling. "There's someone walking downstairs," she whispered. I went down, heart pounding, a baseball bat in my hand. Nothing, but the door to the basement was open, just slightly. We always kept it closed. After that, the weirdness escalated. Ellie told us about the woman who visited her room at night. Not in a scared, dramatic way. She just said it like she was talking about a neighbor. "She has a long dress and no shoes," she said, swinging her legs from the edge of her bed. "What does she say to you?" Lisa asked. Ellie shrugged. "She never talks, just watches." Lisa laughed it off, but I noticed the way her eyes darted toward the hallway. One afternoon, I came home from work early and found all the kitchen cabinets wide open. Nothing missing, nothing out of place, just open. Another time, every framed photo in the hallway was turned around, glass to the wall. Still, no signs of forced entry, nothing stolen. By May, we'd stopped inviting people over. It felt harder to explain why we were so on edge. Friends would ask if we were still settling in, and we'd smile and nod, all while the walls of that perfect home seemed to lean in closer each day. The basement became a place we avoided entirely. It was unfinished, concrete floors, old shelves, a utility sink stained with rust. Even in the daylight, it was dark, cold. Sometimes we'd hear thuds from down there. Not like something falling, more like footsteps, heavy ones. One night, while Lisa and Ellie were asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed and listened. There it was again, that faint tapping. I followed the sound, barefoot and tense, down the stairs and into the hallway. The tapping stopped. I stood still for a long moment, breathing shallow, when a new sound joined it. A creaking, like something heavy shifting under weight. It was coming from the basement. I opened the door, flicked on the light. Nothing. Just that heavy, suffocating stillness. But this time, I went down. Step by step, the air grew colder. The light above buzzed faintly. I walked past the washer and dryer, past the shelves filled with old paint cans and tools. Then I noticed something strange. The far wall, behind the water heater, looked different. It was the same gray concrete as the rest, but the texture was smoother, like it had been patched over. And at the bottom, near the corner, the edge of something metal was poking out of the floor. I knelt down and brushed away the dust. It was a ring, a pull ring, like the kind on a trapdoor. My chest tightened. I didn't want to know what was under it, but I had to know. It took everything I had to lift it. The wood groaned and the smell hit me first, stale, earthy, almost metallic. Beneath it was a short crawl space, no more than 4 feet deep, and in that space there was a mattress, old, yellowed, a single blanket, a doll with one eye missing, and beside it, a stack of Polaroids. I didn't touch them at first, just stared. My breath fogged in front of me despite the warm spring night. When I finally reached in and pulled one out, my hands trembled. The photo showed a young girl, not Ellie, someone else. Pale, barefoot, standing in what looked like our basement. I flipped through a few more. Different girls, same setting, some of them looking straight at the camera, some not. All of them scared. I burned them. All of them. I know I probably shouldn't have. I should have called someone, handed it over to the police. But something about those photos felt wrong in a way that went beyond evidence, like they were never meant to be seen. That night, I told Lisa everything. We stayed in a hotel, packed our things the next morning, and never went back. The house sold months later. No issues, new family. I never followed up. I didn't want to know what they experienced. And the strangest part, after we left, nothing followed us. No nightmares, no strange noises. It was like whatever was in that house was tied to it. But sometimes when I wake up in the middle of the night, I think about the crawl space, about the Polaroids, about how clean that hidden room was, like someone had taken great care to keep it secret. Maybe it was something supernatural. Maybe it was just a person, someone who lived in the walls, who watched and waited. Or maybe the house itself was just hungry. I don't know what's worse, but I do know one thing. Just because a house looks perfect doesn't mean it wants to be lived in.